All right. Well, hi. Hello. I can't see any of you, obviously, but here I am here with Simon in our home in the village of Fasinas in the Straits of Gibraltar. Um, so any of you that have been on trips with us here or elsewhere will know that it's a place that we're very, very passionate about. So I was just going to give you a little bit of a whirlwind round the year tour, really, of all the stuff that's going on here. So okay, so I guess when I'd known Simon for quite a long time before we started our adventure here, and he would always Simon's been leading here for a long time, and he would always tell me about this magical place, and apart from that I probably wasn't really that aware of Tarifa or the Straits of Gibraltar as a place to go, as a wildlife destination. And then he brought me here for the first time, and we came in September. So that's the part of the year where I'm going to start the tour from. And it's probably the bit that everyone knows the most about, right? Because you come to this phenomenal place. You stand on the cliff tops above the town of Tarifa, and you can see the coastline of North Africa. You can see Morocco. It's just 14 kilometers away. To your left from that point, you've got the Mediterranean. To the right, you've got the Atlantic. And it's just this incredible crossroads of continents, of oceans, such a massive mix of different habitats. And of course, because of that very short stretch of sea, that's where this huge migration event happens of all the, particularly the soaring birds moving down in the autumn through Western Europe to cross the ocean here to Africa, so their wintering grounds. So if you do know the Straits of Gibraltar, then it'll be for scenes like this, which is just the phenomenal migration of soaring birds. Here's a group of white storks. We get around about 160,000 white storks across the Straits every autumn, alongside just vast numbers, 225,000 black kites, 35,000 booted eagles, 20,000 short-toed eagles, 3,000 black storks, and 60,000 honey buzzards over the course of the autumn migration. And September's really well known for being the peak of this, I guess, when you get big numbers of birds, but also this big mix of species. So Naturetrek come here, unsurprisingly, throughout September. It's really, really popular. And you've got all the colourful things like the European bee-eaters, Eurasian hoopoes, swifts go through here, common swift, pallid swift. Just this vast array of life just descends on this tiny little kind of stretch of ocean, you know, and you're kind of right underneath experiencing all of that. So that was the first time I came here. And sometimes you get this phenomenon when it's been super windy for a few days and not many birds have crossed. You get this huge buildup of numbers. And then the wind drops and they all go at once. And that was during my first trip here. I remember a day when I saw over 40,000 birds cross the Straits in one single day. And I cried, and I wasn't the only person there that cried. It really is just this fantastic bucket list thing to do. So I thought, wow, okay, this is a place I could quite like to live. So luckily that's what we've done. And then, of course, you've got during that same period, you can take a boat trip out into the Straits themselves. This is a head-on view of a long-finned pilot whale coming straight towards us. It's one of our resident cetaceans here, along with common dolphins, striped dolphins, and you get beautiful things like fin whales passing through on migration, and sperm whales come here to feed as well from the Mediterranean population. So just this amazing kind of flush of life that you get to experience. And, you know, happily, because it all happens here, you get to the right spot on the right day, and you can just kind of sit back and enjoy it happening all over your head, really. So this is one of our Go Slow groups from last September, was it? I think.
one September.
A recent one, post-pandemic September, doing just that, going very slow, but seeing lots of things in the process. So that's kind of, I thought, wow, the Straits, okay. September in the Straits, that's the place to be. But it turns out that actually after that, it just carries on, you know. So as the migration continues on into October time, this other continent across the water starts to kind of call to you, and it's just it's about an hour and a half ferry ride away. So you can actually experience both continents during the course of a week. So you can follow the continuing autumn migration across, watch birds arrive from the other side as well, but also explore a place that, for being only, you know, a few miles away, is extraordinarily different from a cultural point of view, and some really interesting different wildlife there as well. So we go across to, there's some fantastic wetlands on the north coast of Morocco. Here is a picture of the Mergazerga Lagoon, which is just across the way from us, which was the last place where the slender-billed curlew was recorded and photographed. And despite the sort of sad disappearance of that bird, it's still just incredibly teeming with life. It's a really strategically placed wetland, very rich in food, right on this incredible migratory flyway. So you can head out on a boat trip onto the lagoon itself, and just get right out onto the mud flats and sand flats. And it's just extraordinarily full of everything from spoonbills, flamingos, curlew sandpiper, little stints. You've got gulls and terns, and it's all kind of so right in the middle of it. It's really extraordinary experience to go there, and just such a short distance away as well. It's also now pretty much the last refuge of the Moroccan marsh owl, which is a critically endangered subspecies of marsh owl. The small population clinging on there, it's really, the habitat's really suffering because of the encroachment of very intensive farming of things like strawberries onto what was very low intensity grazing wet pasture land. But there's still a small population, very accessible in the autumn. They come in to roost, much like short-eared owls come in to a communal roost. You can witness them. They're quite extraordinary. They're like a short-eared owl with kind of gothic makeup on. Just kind of, you know, seeing them at the end of the day, it's really, really magical there. Then also just along the coast from there, we go up into the Rif Mountains, which you can see from Spain. And this is a view down from well over 1,000 meters up here in this extraordinary landscape. There's forests at the top that have predate 2 ice ages. It's a really ancient sort of habitat. So this is where we go up to encounter things like Barbary macaques in the nearby cork oak forests. And kind of the star of the show for a lot of people is this gorgeous Mousier's redstart, which is just a little mountain jewel, which you can sort of go up there, see it right up there in the sort of high altitude beauty of the place. And recently in the grounds of the lovely place where we stay, right by the Dardara River, we had a nice close encounter with this Maghreb wood owl, which would have been a tawny owl a couple of years ago, but it's now been officially split into a new species. So it was peering at it, and I think we were a bit more excited than it was, but it's very beautiful. And plenty of time over there as well to get a real flavour of the differences in culture too. This is they call it the Blue Pearl of Morocco, the town of Chefchaouen, up there in the Rif Mountains. It's beautiful blue painted streets. So as if that wasn't enough, we're only in October, So then you come back and the migration is still going on. That September migration that everyone thinks about it carries way, way on. And by the end of October, early November, it's at a beautiful, really nice pace where you can appreciate individual birds. And it also now hits the peak of the vulture migration. So this, for birds with a wingspan as long as this, really is the only place they can cross the sea. So France and Spain, their vultures, only the first year vultures, they only migrate the once. They fledge, they fly to sub-Saharan Africa to kind of come of age, and then return years later to try and seek out a place to breed. But it's in the region of, it was about 10,000 vultures. I think it's increasing actually because they're doing okay. But they really have to choose the right conditions. So you get these spectacular days where there's just thousands of them. And you get kind of this kind of encounter there. They're just this close, you know, seeking thermals and just swirling over your head. These are birds that just learnt to fly, and now they have to figure out how to cross a sea. So it's quite extraordinary to be part of. And on that very same trip in November, as autumn's moving on, winter is starting to encroach. So it's a great time to head up into the mountains, just about an hour and a half away from the Straits above Malaga. You get right up away from the Costa del Sol into the undisturbed areas of the Serranía de Ronda. So you can see, it's funny, I was doing some work on a recent trip there this afternoon. I realized you can see Spanish ibex and long-finned pilot whale on the same trip, which is quite an altitude difference for two mammals. But so Spanish ibex up there on the crags, and we go up there for lovely little mountain gems like this gorgeous blue rock thrush, which posed for us for a nice long time. Really cute. Same time of year, also yet another sort of avian movement, habitat, the movement from east to west through the Straits of shearwaters heading out from their breeding grounds in the Mediterranean. So scopoles and Balearic shearwaters mostly. Massive movement. You can sit, we have access to a permit only site on Tarifa Island, which is the very closest point to Africa, the very narrowest point of the Straits. And you can watch thousands of Balearic shearwaters every hour powering through there with scopoli shearwaters. You get all kinds of puffins, God, what else? Gannets, skewers of various kinds, really just amazing. But a lot of people kind of cringe at the word sea watching, but when it's kind of right there in front of you, it makes it, and so, you know, the birds are so numerous, it's really a fantastic way to while away some time. And also the wader migration at that time of year, as well as our kind of resident things like Kentish plovers here. You just got masses of waders piling through south as well, including things like little stin. Sorry, Simon's done a load of slides, so I didn't double check all of them. But yeah, lovely little stint there on its way through. The farmlands as well come to life for the winter. You get fantastic views of gorgeous things like black-winged kites, which come to our recently harvested rice fields. Really kind of fills with big flocks of things like Spanish sparrows. By the end of the Ronda and the Straits trip, you will often start to see the first of the common cranes turning up there to winter alongside white storks, which have chosen to overwinter as well. So a real cornucopia of life right on into the winter. And when the first rains come, then all kinds of things start to emerge out of the undergrowth as well, like this Gibraltar fiery salamander, which came out on Halloween, gave us all a nice surprise. So that kind of wealth of life goes on right the way through the winter, keeps us all busy. And then before you know it, it's spring again. And there we are on the cliff tops, round about, it's usually about the 20th of February, the first of the black kites start coming back. So everyone, you know, keep bearing in mind what I said. Everyone's, oh, the September migration. But this migration so far has continued on into mid-November. We've had a tiny lull, and now it's February and everything's starting to come back again. So yep, here we are again. We pile back onto the cliff tops, and people often ask me which I prefer out of the autumn or spring migration, and you just can't, you have to see them both. They're so different, because I think the autumn on the Spanish side, you get this huge weight of numbers, but then in the spring, it's about this kind of very intimate individual experiences, watching stuff coming back. They've started high, gained all their height in Morocco, and now they've powered across the sea, and now they're coming in really low over your heads. So things like booted eagles, short-toed eagles, just arriving. Often you can see the exhaustion and how hard a task it's been to get across the sea. And you know, it's really, you can watch them come in with sort of heart in your mouth as they're dropping lower and lower, and then suddenly there they are. And one of the best bits of the spring, I think, is as this is going on, it doesn't get more normal, it gets more special as you're like 2 or 3 months into it, and you're like, wow, things are still coming. And just when you think there could be nothing else left, then the honey buzzards start coming in May. And this is a trip, actually, we're really looking forward to showing people this in May. It will be the first time we've done a honey buzzard migration based trip. And it's just superb. I mean, the numbers are super concentrated, and the sound's still on. It's like watching insects. I mean, tens and tens of thousands of them, all within this week. So just phenomenal scenes. And you'll get these kettles like this, with 1,000 birds in it, and you'll look a bit to your right and there's another one the same, and you'll look around and there's more and more and more, and it's quite yeah, it's quite an amazing thing to see. So this goes on. So I suppose mid-May, perhaps we start to get the smallest of lull in the migration before things start coming back again. Then it's time to enjoy other things like the butterflies. Here we have two-tailed pasha shown here, which is the largest butterfly in Europe. We also have kind of unusual things, like we have monarch butterflies here, which were introduced into Gibraltar, actually, and into the botanical gardens, came in on some of the plants that are there, but have now kind of spread out. They stick to their non-native plants, so aren't invasive as such, just a kind of extra additional pretty thing to look at. And we also have, it's one of the few places where you can see, well, the only place, I guess, where you can see all 5 species of swift that breed here. So this is a nice little swift just hanging from its nest. This is just along the coast from us near Cardiff. There's a nice colony. You can also see white-rumped swift here and alpine swift, as well as pallid and common, all in the space of a swift weekend. So that would be a good name for a trip, wouldn't it? But that is a really great trip, not just for the swift, but because of the wealth of just unusual and interesting breeding kind of breeding birds that we have here. So we have this fantastic colony of northern bald ibis, which are one of my favorite birds in the world. And I think my mum's watching, she will love this. It's definitely her favorite. Just a really cool, funky, charismatic birds. They were one of the top 10 most endangered birds in the world. They're doing better in Morocco, and the colony here is doing super well. It's a really successful reintroduction project 15 years ago now. So well and truly wild birds here, and really great to see them around. It's a video, isn't it? So yeah, the rather wonderful Rufous tailed bush chat as well, which is such a draw to come here and see that in the wildlife friendly vineyards around Cardiff. Look at that, fantastic. Really, really great birds. Fantastic stuff on the wetland as well, things like white-headed duck, marbled duck. Yeah, red-knobbed coot, thank you. Yeah, so some real wetland specialities, farmland specialities, all right on our doorstep and right through the summer. So yeah, then just as you think it's time to relax, you're back into autumn, and at the end of July, the white storks start leaving. And the black kites start leaving, and the whole fantastic migration cycle begins again. This is our colleague Carlos from Fundación Migres. They are an organisation that monitor the migration. When we're not showing you guys migration, we're more often than not can be found on the cliff tops with them counting migrant soaring birds crossing the Straits. So we're right back into the black kite migration. Epic scenes like this, which is what we all, and this is locally known as a millenada, which basically means a kite fest. And we're right back into that absolute uplifting, life-changing spectacle that the Straits is so famous for. Fantastic. And then at the end of the day, you can digest it all at our beautiful accommodation at the Cortijo El Indiviso. Here's a lovely dinner in the orange grove to celebrate the end of another day of wonderful migration. So that's a year in the Straits in 22 minutes. Quite whistle stop, but I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.